did. That's okay.
Hey, and welcome back to Rideshare Rhetoric. I'm Clarky.
And I'm Margaret.
And this is another story about real people and the real stories they share with me.
You get to meet the most fascinating people in your car. So tell me a story about someone that you've met recently.
Okay, this almost needs a disclaimer.
Okay.
Because you've got to remember these people tell me stories from their perspective.
Yeah, of course.
And there's always another side to the story. But I'll explain what actually occurred. I got an opportunity to drive up a mountain, a kilometre of winding driveway with cameras.
Oh.
And so they're on candid camera.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, where am I going? Because I had no idea. And I get up there and I thought, this is like a cult compound. It was. And the people walking around all looked out the corner of their eyes at me and they head down and they're walking around really quietly.
Were they wearing robes?
Well, they were wearing weird shit. Anyway, there was this guy or two guys and a woman waiting for me as I pulled up. And the first guy, who's a young-looking guy, but he was the cult leader, I'm sure, the way he was dressed. Anyway, he walks over and says, you're picking up Joe Blow. And I said, yes. And he said, okay. And my ride gets in the car and they just farewell him. And he was quite quiet to start with as we're driving down the kilometre driveway back the other way. And he said, I'm so glad to get out of there, but I'm really disappointed.
Oh, out of the cult.
He was getting away from the cult, but it wasn't a cult. It was actually a rehab facility, a drug rehab facility. And all these people who were wandering around were drug addicts that were in rehab.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Now, it was a really high-end one because the reason I was taking this guy away, he'd flown in from Western Australia into Brisbane, driven up here, so 2-hour drive, and he'd paid a deposit to go there. The cost was $25,000 a week. He was staying there for 2 weeks. He'd paid $2,000. His wife was going to transfer the $48,000 for him to stay there for 2 weeks. She didn't do that. So they said, we can't have you here. See you later. So he's flown over.
So he's flown over for 2 weeks expecting to go into rehab. And rocked up and they're like, no.
And he's been travelling. So people who don't realise how big Australia is, from Western Australia to Queensland, it's like a 5-hour flight and then a 2-hour, and then a give or take depending on the wind. But then a 2-hour drive up here plus getting luggage and stuff like that.
So it ends up being
it's probably 8 hours to get up
10
here.
hours even. Yeah.
I've picked him up. He's been there an hour. I've picked him up and I'm taking him back to the airport so I can fly back to Perth because he has no money with him. And I said, why don't you have any money? Why is your wife transferring the money? He said, well, I'm a meth addict, but I'm a high-functioning meth addict. And she manages the money. She's a clean skin.
Wow.
And they've got a 16-year-old daughter. So he then goes on to tell me that when he said he was a high-functioning meth addict, I said, that doesn't make sense to me because I see a lot of meth addicts. I get to...
In the rideshare?
Yeah, I get to drive them around from place to place.
Well, they need to get places too, I guess.
And they're quite open and honest about the fact that they are meth addicts, but most of them are doing it really tough. They're either living on the streets or in a really rough scenario, and they're just looking for the hit that they require. He said, no, I work in the mines, have worked in the mines for the last 20 years.
Wow.
And I said, well...
Is it high functioning? But don't you, like, they have drug tests all the time in the mines.
That's exactly what I said to him. I said, don't they have drug tests? How do you get through this? I don't know whether this is true. This is what he said. He said that meth gets out of your system relatively quickly.
Okay.
So he was working 8 days on, 6 days off. The 8 days he worked, he didn't touch drugs. So he would go into withdrawal towards the end of the 8 days.
Oh, yuck. Towards the end, though.
Yeah. Like,
interesting.
it just builds up over, it gets worse and worse each day. And then when he went home, straight on it. And he injected the meth straight into his system.
Oh,
He said he'd get a better high. So he would be high then for the next 5 days, and he'd go off it on the last day and then go to work for 24 hours later.
And that was enough to keep him...
Apparently, been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah, okay.
He's worked in a number of mines, and the mine he was working at the moment was a BHP mine. So I assume their health and safety standards are fairly high.
All mining sites, their standards are pretty high. Well, in developed countries, I guess, you might want to add.
So he was well paid, had been well paid for a long time, financially quite stable, owned his house, owned his toys like his cars and his boats and things like that. Had some cash that he was paying to get into this rehab centre so he could get off meth. He wanted to get off meth because his daughter was quite a talented athlete. She was 16. She'd represented the state in a couple of different sports at underage level.
Wow.
And he wanted to be a responsible father. He then went on to say, I'm divorcing this woman as I'm driving him back. I said, why? He said, because she's letting me down by doing things like this. I said, I've got to find a way to get off meth.
Yeah.
So
he does.
so I can live.
He's got to find a reason, and if his daughter is the reason that
he's 46 years of age.
Wow.
He'd been on drugs of different, from weed through to meth that he's on now, since he was 14. So for 32 years, he's been, and he was quite open. He said, I've been a drug addict for 32 years.
And he hasn't wanted to change it for 32 years.
He's tried many times. He's been to a number of rehab centres. This was his last straw. A lot of the rehab centres, he was quite disappointed about them because they kept saying positive things to him. And he felt frustrated by that. They say, look, you're a really intelligent person. You're really good at what you do. And they're reinforcing these positive things, but he really needs a slap in the face, I think.
You're quite good at that. A slap in the face.
I didn't slap him in the face, and I didn't say anything. But I thought, have you just done something to replace the high of the drug? I know it's really difficult because not that I've ever tried drugs like meth or anything like that. Apparently the high is really high, but you can get quite high. Like you fall in love, you actually have a high.
Well, for a period of time,
for that emotion, that time. So,
and then it just becomes normal, doesn't it?
So we were talking about that, and he goes, yeah, do you know, I used to skateboard a lot. And I said, fantastic, skateboard again. I know the people who hang around skate parks may be a bit dubious, but go and skate.
Yeah.
And I said, break a bone or two. Try and do something that's really outlandish. Try a trick that you haven't done since you were 14.
And he hasn't been back to work since.
But he was going, yeah, I could do something like that. And he was taking it on board. I found it, this is sort of pissing in my own pocket here a little bit, but
well, we wouldn't want that now, would we?
He was sitting in the back and he said, God, I wish I'd sat in the front.
Yeah.
Because we're having such a good conversation. This conversation went on for 2 hours.
Yeah. It's a trip down to the airport, that's for sure.
And we covered a lot of ground. And we spoke about like things that may help him. I said, you've got to surround yourself with good people. You can't surround yourself with bad people. I'm really concerned that you're saying you're going to get a divorce because you're going to be on your own again. And that becomes a lonely scenario. And then,
but he's been an addict while he's been
his
wife.
Yep,
so, who knows what's around the corner for any of us, really.
Exactly. I hope like hell that he actually achieves his goal and gets off meth. Like he's had some times where he's broken it, but he's always gone back for a reason. Something's occurred in his life and it's gone.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? Looking at why people go back, and because you get to this point where your body's no longer physically addicted, but something in your mind and your being
Yeah, absolutely.
is still seeking that form of high in life.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it's a sad scenario in some ways,
Yeah, it is.
but hopefully it's positive. It's like I have a number of meth addict stories because some people just do drugs.
And they don't seem to mind
drugs.
telling you about it.
They tell me, they all tell me.
They tell you everything.
They all tell me. And I just really hope he actually gets in a position of stability. Like, he has a job and he's highly regarded in the role he has. And he just needs to tidy up his addiction.
Yep, but unless he decides that that's what he wants to do, maybe in reality he just saved himself 48 grand.
May have. That's true. We pull up to the airport and he gets out of the car and he had some luggage, obviously. And I get out and help him. And he gives me a big hug and shakes my hand and says, "Thanks, mate. I really appreciate the chat."
Yeah.
But it's one of those stories again where you just say, "Good luck. See you later."
And what I hear, it's one of those stories again where you get out and hug the passenger.
Yeah, I hug. I'm
constantly.
I'm a hugger.
If you have a rideshare driver who hugs you, it's probably this one.
Yeah, I love a good hug. But they instigate it, so it's not me.
Okay.
So until next time, hit like, hit follow, share it, do all those things, and we'll catch up next week.